The text message arrived at 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday, lighting up my phone screen like a neon sign in the darkness of our bedroom. I wouldn't have seen it if I hadn't been lying awake, listening to Kara's perfectly timed breathing beside me, wondering when my wife had become such an accomplished liar. Can't wait to feel you inside me again tomorrow. Tom's working late at that pathetic factory of his. We'll have ours. The message wasn't meant for me. It was meant for my phone, but intended for someone else entirely. Someone who apparently knew my work schedule better than I thought anyone should. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Tom Avery, and up until that moment, I thought I had a pretty good handle on my life. I run Avery Steel Fabrication, a business my father started, and I've been trying to keep afloat in an economy that seems determined to crush small manufacturers like bugs under a boot. My wife Kara works in HR at TechFlow Solutions, makes twice what I do, and never lets me forget it. We live in a renovated Victorian house in Millbrook, Maine, population 8,400, where everyone knows everyone's business except, apparently, their own spouse's extracurricular activities. The phone trembled in my hands as I read the message again, and again. Each time, the words rearranged themselves into the same devastating conclusion. My wife was cheating on me, and whoever she was cheating with had just sent her a message to my phone by mistake. I glanced over at Kara. Even in sleep, she looked calculating. Her blonde hair was perfectly arranged on the pillow, her skincare routine having left her face glowing in that expensive way that costs more per ounce than the steel I buy for my fabrication jobs. She'd been working late a lot recently. Big project, she'd said. New consultant helping us restructure the department. The consultant. Of course. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was a correction message. Sorry, wrong number. Please disregard previous message. Too late for that, buddy. I slipped out of bed, grabbed my clothes, and headed downstairs to my workshop in the basement. It's where I go to think, surrounded by the tools of my trade and the smell of metal and machine oil. It's honest work, dirty work, the kind that leaves calluses on your hands and pride in your chest, the kind of work that apparently doesn't impress wives anymore. I sat on my workbench and stared at the phone. The number wasn't in my contacts, but it had a local area code. I could call it, confront whoever answered, but that seemed like the kind of move that would blow up in my face. Instead, I did what any reasonable person would do at midnight. I started planning. See, here's what people don't understand about running a small business in a town like Millbrook. You learn to be resourceful. You learn to solve problems with whatever tools you have at hand. You learn that sometimes the best revenge isn't getting mad, it's getting even. The next morning, Kara came down to the kitchen at exactly 7:15 a.m., like she had every morning for the past 3 years. She was wearing her navy blue power suit, the one that made her look like she could fire someone before her first cup of coffee. "Morning, honey," she said, kissing my cheek with the same enthusiasm she'd show a distant relative at a funeral. "I'll be late again tonight. This restructuring project is killing me." "Which consultant are you working with again?" I asked, keeping my voice casual while I flipped pancakes. "You never mentioned his name." She paused, just for a second, but I caught it. "Ethan Brooks. He's very thorough." "I bet he is." "Well, tell Ethan I said thanks for keeping my wife so busy." She looked at me sharply. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Just nice to know she's in good hands." After she left, I sat in my kitchen and made a list. Not a revenge list, not yet, just a fact-finding list. Because if there's one thing my father taught me about business, it's that you never make a move without understanding all the variables. Variable 1, who was Ethan Brooks? Variable 2, how long had this been going on? Variable 3, who else knew? Variable 4, what did I want to do about it? I started with variable 1. TechFlow Solutions occupies a sleek glass building on the good side of town, the kind of place where people wear badges and drink coffee that costs more than my lunch. I'd never visited Kara at work before. She'd always said it would be awkward and unprofessional. Now I understood why. I parked my beat-up Ford pickup between a Tesla and a BMW, feeling like I was representing the working class at a country club meeting. The receptionist, a young woman with the kind of smile that could cut glass, looked me up and down when I asked for Kara. "I'm sorry. Mrs. Avery is in a meeting with our consultant. Very important project. Can I take a message?" "No message. I'll wait." I sat in the lobby for 20 minutes, watching people in expensive suits walk past like they were saving the world instead of shuffling digital paperwork. Finally, the elevator opened, and out walked my wife with a man who looked like he'd stepped out of a catalog for generic, successful businessman. Ethan Brooks was everything I wasn't. Tall where I was average height, smooth where I was rough around the edges, wearing a suit that probably cost more than most people's monthly rent. He had the kind of confident smile that suggested he'd never met a problem he couldn't charm his way out of. He also had his hand on the small of my wife's back. "Tom!" Kara's voice went up about 3 octaves. "What are you doing here?" "Thought I'd take my wife to lunch," I said, walking over to them. "You must be Ethan." I stuck out my hand, noting the softness of his palm when he shook it. This was a man who'd never held anything heavier than a briefcase. "Tom Avery," he said, and I swear I saw a flicker of something, amusement, in his eyes. "I've heard so much about you." "Funny, I haven't heard anything about you." Kara stepped between us like a referee at a boxing match. "Ethan, this is my husband. Tom, Ethan's helping us restructure the entire HR department. It's very complex work." "I'm sure it is," I said. "All those late nights must be exhausting." "Actually," Ethan said, "Kara's been invaluable. She really knows how to handle things." The double meaning hung in the air like smoke. This guy wasn't just sleeping with my wife, he was enjoying the fact that I didn't know about it, or thought I didn't know about it. "Well," I said, "I should let you two get back to your restructuring." I left them standing there, but not before I saw Ethan whisper something in Kara's ear that made her face go pale. That afternoon, I called my cousin Joe. He'd been a cop for 15 years before retiring early on disability, and he owed me a favor from when I'd given him work at the plant during his rough patch. "I need some information on someone," I told him. "This about Kara?" Joe always was too smart for his own good. "What makes you say that?" "Tom, half the town knows she's been running around. The other half is too polite to mention it. You want me to dig into this Brooks character?" "Just basic information. Where he lives, what kind of car he drives, whether he's married. Give me a day." Joe called back the next evening while I was working late at the plant, welding brackets for a construction job that would barely cover my overhead. Ethan Brooks, age 42, divorced, lives in one of those fancy riverside condos downtown, drives a white Tesla Model S, leased, not owned. He's been in town for 3 months, supposedly on a 6-month contract with TechFlow. Before that, he was in Portland doing the same kind of consulting work. Any idea why he left Portland? Funny you should ask. Seems there was some kind of incident with a married woman there, too. Nothing criminal, just messy. So my wife was dating a professional homewrecker. Somehow that made it worse. "One more thing," Joe said. "He's been seen around town with Kara for at least 6 weeks. They're not exactly subtle about it." 6 weeks. While I'd been working 16-hour days trying to land a contract that would keep the plant running, my wife had been auditioning for a new husband. "Thanks, Joe." "Tom, whatever you're thinking of doing, just remember, revenge is a dish best served cold." "Don't worry," I said. "I'm not planning to do anything stupid." That was true. I wasn't planning to do anything stupid. I was planning to do something smart. The Blue Boy is the kind of bar where working people go to forget their problems and create new ones. It sits on the edge of downtown Millbrook like a stubborn weed that refuses to be gentrified, serving beer that costs $2 and whiskey that burns just right. I'd been going there since I turned 21, and the bartender, Lila, knew everyone's business before they did. I was nursing my second beer when Jerry Kowalski slid onto the stool next to me. Jerry's been my plant foreman for 8 years, and he's got the kind of loyalty you can't buy, the kind that comes from working alongside someone through good times and bad. "Heard you had a visitor at TechFlow today," he said. "News travels fast." Rita Clary was getting her nails done when you walked out of there looking like someone had kicked your dog. She called my wife called me, and here we are. Rita Clary was Kara's best friend and the town's unofficial information network. If Rita knew I'd been to TechFlow, then by tomorrow morning everyone would know. "You want to talk about it?" Jerry asked. I told him everything, the text message, the meeting with Ethan, Joe's background check. Jerry listened without interrupting, occasionally nodding like he was putting together pieces of a puzzle he'd been working on for weeks. "You know what you're going to do?" he asked when I finished. "I'm working on it." "Well, when you figure it out, let me know if you need help. That woman's been looking down her nose at working folks for too long, and this Brooks character sounds like the kind of guy who needs to learn some manners." That's when Lila leaned over from behind the bar. "You boys talking about Kara's new boyfriend?" "You know about Ethan?" I asked. Honey, I've been serving drinks in this town for 20 years. I know about everything. Your wife's been bringing that slick-talking city boy in here for weeks, acting like they invented romance. Last Tuesday, they were practically doing it on the pool table. My hands tightened around my beer bottle. Last Tuesday? Yep, same night you were here playing darts with Jerry, remember? She walked right past you on her way to the back booth, bold as brass. I don't think she even saw you. I remembered that night. I'd left the plant early for once, thinking I'd surprise Kara with dinner out. When I called her, she said she was working late and couldn't be disturbed, so I'd come to the Blue Boy instead, played darts, and gone home to an empty house. There's more, Lila said, glancing around to make sure no one else was listening. Rita Clary's been in here 3 times this week, drunk as a skunk, crying about how guilty she feels. Apparently she's been covering for Kara, telling people she's been with her when she's really been with Lover Boy. Rita knows? Rita's been helping, making up stories about girls' nights and shopping trips. But the guilt's eating her alive, and when Rita drinks, she talks. I finished my beer and stood up. Thanks, Lila. Tom? She called as I headed for the door. Whatever you do, make it count. The next morning, I woke up before dawn with a plan. Not the whole plan, that would take time to develop, but the beginning of one. I made coffee, sat at my kitchen table, and started writing. I wrote down every lie Kara had told me in the past 3 months. Every late meeting, and work dinner, and girls' night with Rita. I wrote down every time she'd been cold or distant, every time she'd picked a fight over nothing, every time she'd made me feel small. Then I wrote down everything I knew about Ethan Brooks. His address, his car, his work schedule, his pattern of behavior. I wrote down the names of everyone who knew about the affair and everyone who didn't. Finally, I wrote down what I wanted to accomplish. Not just revenge, that was too simple. I wanted justice. I wanted consequences. I wanted them to understand that actions have prices, and some prices are higher than others. When Kara came downstairs at 7:15, I was reading the newspaper like nothing had changed. Morning, she said, pouring herself coffee. I'll be late again tonight. Big meeting? The biggest. Ethan thinks we're close to a breakthrough. That's great, honey. You know how much I appreciate all your hard work. She looked at me suspiciously. You're being weird. Just proud of my wife, that's all. Not every man is married to someone so dedicated. She left for work looking confused, which was exactly how I wanted her to feel. Uncertainty was going to be my best weapon. At the plant, I called Jerry into my office and closed the door. Remember what you said about helping? I'm listening. I need you to do something that might seem crazy. Crazy's my middle name. I handed him a piece of paper with Ethan's license plate number. I need you to follow this car tonight. Don't get close. Don't let him see you. Just see where he goes and who he's with. You want me to spy on your wife's boyfriend? I want you to gather information. There's a difference. Jerry grinned. When do I start? Jerry's surveillance report was better than I'd hoped. Ethan Brooks wasn't just cheating with my wife. He was sloppy about it. He parked his Tesla in the same restaurant parking lots, took her to the same hotel on Route 1, and kept the same schedule every Tuesday and Thursday night. More importantly, Jerry had followed them to Ethan's condo, where they'd stood on the balcony drinking wine and laughing like they didn't have a care in the world, like they weren't destroying a marriage and a life. They looked real comfortable, Jerry reported, like this wasn't their first time there. Anything else? Yeah, that Tesla of his. It's got one of those fancy electronic door handles, the kind that pop out when you touch them. I smiled. Thanks, Jerry. You did good work. That night, I waited until Kara left for her late meeting, then drove to Ethan's condo complex. The Riverside Towers were everything my Victorian house wasn't. New, sleek, and soulless. The kind of place where people paid extra for granite countertops and the privilege of looking down on the rest of the town. I found the Tesla in the parking garage, gleaming white under the fluorescent lights. Jerry was right about the door handles. They were electronic, designed to impress people who were easily impressed by technology. I opened my toolbox and got to work. Superglue is a wonderful thing. It's cheap, it's permanent, and when applied correctly to electronic door handles, it makes them completely inoperable. I used an entire tube, working carefully to make sure every moving part was thoroughly coated. Then I waited. They came back at 11:30, laughing and stumbling slightly like they'd had too much wine with dinner. I watched from behind a concrete pillar as they approached the Tesla, Ethan's arm around Kara's waist, her head on his shoulder. Ethan pressed the handle. Nothing happened. He pressed it again, harder. Still nothing. What the hell? He muttered, trying the passenger side. Same result. Kara stepped back, suddenly looking less romantic and more annoyed. Can't you get it open? The handles are stuck or something. This is a $50,000 car. This shouldn't happen. They spent 20 minutes trying to get into the Tesla while I watched from the shadows, enjoying every frustrated curse and increasingly frantic attempt. Finally, Ethan called a tow truck while Kara called an Uber. I drove home and was in bed, pretending to sleep, when Kara crept in at 1:15 a.m. "How was your meeting?" I asked softly. She jumped like she'd been shot. "I thought you were asleep? Just dozing? Long meeting?" "Very long. Complicated stuff." I'm sure it was. The next morning, I was at my workbench when my phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. "Hello? Is this Tom Avery?" The voice was smooth, confident, and familiar. "Speaking." "This is Ethan Brooks. I think we need to talk." My heart rate jumped, but I kept my voice steady. "About what?" "I think you know. Can you meet me for coffee? Say, in an hour at Millbrook Diner?" "I'll be there." Millbrook Diner sits on Main Street like a time capsule from the 1950s, all chrome and red vinyl and coffee that could wake the dead. I got there first and chose a booth in the back where we could talk without being overheard. Ethan walked in exactly on time, wearing jeans and a polo shirt that probably cost more than most people's weekly grocery budget. He looked around the diner like he was visiting a museum exhibit on small-town life. "Tom," he said, sliding into the booth across from me. "Thanks for meeting me." "What's this about, Ethan?" He leaned forward, his voice dropping to a confidential tone. "I think we both know what this is about, and I think we can handle this like adults." "Handle what?" "Come on, Tom. You know about Kara and me. The question is, what are you going to do about it?" I studied his face. There was no guilt there, no shame, just the calculating look of a man trying to solve a problem. "What do you think I should do?" "I think you should be realistic. Kara's not happy in your marriage. She hasn't been for a long time. She deserves better than this." He gestured vaguely, presumably indicating my life in general. "Better than what?" "Better than being married to a guy who runs a failing factory and comes home covered in grease every night. Better than living in that old house, driving that old truck, shopping at discount stores. She's a sophisticated woman, Tom. She needs someone who can give her the life she deserves." The coffee in my cup had gone cold, but I took a sip anyway, buying time to control my temper. "Someone like you?" "Someone like me." "And what exactly are you proposing?" "Make it easy on everyone. File for divorce. Don't make a scene. Let her go, and we'll all be happier." I set down my coffee cup and looked him straight in the eye. "And if I don't?" "Then things could get complicated. Kara's told me about your temper, your drinking, the way you've been treating her. It would be a shame if those stories became public knowledge." There it was, the threat I'd been expecting. They weren't just planning to humiliate me. They were planning to destroy me. "I see," I said. "Well, Ethan, I appreciate your honesty." "So we have a deal?" "We have something," I said, standing up, "but I wouldn't call it a deal." I left him sitting there, probably thinking he'd won. He had no idea the game had just begun. The Millbrook Fall Festival happens every October, transforming our sleepy downtown into something that looks like a Norman Rockwell painting. There are craft booths and food trucks, a small carnival with rides that have seen better days, and enough apple cider to float a boat. It's the kind of event where everyone in town shows up, whether they want to or not. I'd been planning for this day for 2 weeks, ever since my coffee meeting with Ethan. Every detail had been carefully considered, every variable accounted for. Today was the day I stopped being the victim and started being the author of my own story. I arrived early, while the vendors were still setting up their booths. Jerry met me by the dunk tank, carrying a box that contained the final piece of my plan. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I've never been more sure of anything in my life." "And you're certain they'll be here?" Rita Clary's been posting about it on social media for weeks. Kara won't miss a chance to be seen at the social event of the season. And where Kara goes, Ethan follows." Jerry handed me the box. Inside was a wireless microphone system, the kind we used for safety announcements at the plant. "You remember how to work this thing?" "I've been practicing." They showed up at noon, right on schedule. Kara was wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than most people's monthly car payment, while Ethan had gone for the casual but expensive look that screamed, "I have money, but I'm approachable." They moved through the crowd like celebrities, stopping to chat with people, Kara introducing Ethan as her colleague to anyone who didn't already know better. I watched them from across the square, timing their movements, waiting for the perfect moment. They bought apple cider from the Lions Club booth, browsed the craft tables, and eventually made their way toward the small stage where the high school band was setting up for their afternoon performance. That's when I made my move. I walked up to them with a smile on my face and my hands in my pockets. "Kara, Ethan, Great to see you here. Kara's face went through several expressions in rapid succession. Surprise, fear, and finally a forced smile. Tom, I didn't expect to see you here. Wouldn't miss it. You know how much I love community events. I turned to Ethan. How are you enjoying your first Millbrook festival? It's charming, he said, the word dripping with condescension. Wait until you see the main event, I said, pulling the wireless microphone from my pocket and switching it on. The feedback squeal from the PA system made everyone in the square turn to look at us. Perfect. Ladies and gentlemen, I said, my voice carrying across the festival grounds, I'd like to take a moment to introduce you to someone special. Kara grabbed my arm. Tom, what are you doing? This is Ethan Brooks, I continued, ignoring her. He's a consultant who's been working very closely with my wife. Very, very closely. The crowd was starting to gather around us, sensing drama. In a town like Millbrook, public spectacles were rare and therefore precious. Tom, stop, Kara hissed. In fact, I said, Ethan's been working so closely with Kara that he's been restructuring more than just her department, if you know what I mean. A murmur went through the crowd. Ethan stepped forward, his face flushed with anger. Give me that microphone. Why? Don't you want everyone to know about your relationship with my wife? I thought you were proud of it. Tom, please, Kara said, tears starting to form in her eyes. Please what? Please keep pretending I don't know? Please keep letting you lie to me while you sleep with this guy? Please keep being the fool while you two laugh about it behind my back? The crowd had grown larger. I could see Rita Clary near the front, her face white with shock. Behind her, Lila from the Blue Boy was grinning like she was watching her favorite TV show. Ethan lunged for the microphone, but I stepped back, and he stumbled forward, off balance. The crowd laughed, and his face turned an even deeper shade of red. You want to know the best part? I said into the microphone. Ethan here thinks I should just step aside and let him have my wife. He thinks she deserves better than a guy who works with his hands for a living. He thinks she needs someone more sophisticated. That's enough, Ethan shouted. You're right, I said, switching off the microphone. It is enough. But I wasn't done. Not yet. I walked over to the dunk tank where the high school principal was sitting on the platform, ready to be dunked for charity. Excuse me, Mr. Peterson. Mind if I borrow this for a minute? Before anyone could object, I grabbed Ethan by the arm and shoved him toward the tank. He was so surprised that he didn't resist until it was too late. He fell backward into the water with a splash that sent waves over the sides of the tank. The crowd erupted in laughter and applause. Ethan came up sputtering, his carefully styled hair plastered to his head, his expensive clothes soaked and clinging to his body. There, I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. Now you're all wet, just like your promises. Kara was crying openly now, but they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of humiliation and rage. You bastard, she said. You complete bastard. Maybe, I said, but at least I'm an honest bastard. Ethan climbed out of the dunk tank, water streaming from his clothes, his dignity somewhere at the bottom of the tank. You're going to pay for this, he said. Am I? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you're the one who's all washed up. That got another laugh from the crowd. Ethan grabbed Kara's hand and tried to pull her away, but she shook him off. Don't touch me, she said. This is your fault. You said he'd never find out. You said he was too stupid to figure it out. Kara, not here. Yes, here, she screamed. In front of everyone, just like he humiliated us in front of everyone. And then she slapped him, hard. The sound echoed across the square like a gunshot. Ethan stood there for a moment, holding his cheek, looking around at the crowd of faces staring back at him. Then he turned and walked away, pushing through the crowd toward the parking lot. Kara looked at me with pure hatred in her eyes. I hope you're happy. I'm getting there, I said. She followed Ethan toward the parking lot, leaving me standing in the square with half the town watching. The crowd began to disperse, people talking excitedly about what they'd just witnessed. This would be the talk of Millbrook for months. Jerry appeared at my side. Well, that was something. It was something, all right. What now? Now we go to the Blue Boy and have a drink. I think I've earned it. As we walked away from the square, I heard someone behind us say, Did you see the look on that city boy's face when he hit the water? And someone else replied, Tom Avery might be quiet, but he's got style. For the first time in months, I smiled and meant it. The divorce papers were filed on Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, Kara had moved out of our house and into a hotel. By Tuesday, Ethan Brooks had terminated his consulting contract with TechFlow Solutions and left town. By Wednesday, the story of what happened at the Fall Festival had spread beyond Millbrook, becoming the kind of local legend that gets better with each telling. I was working late at the plant on Thursday when Joe called. You might want to know, he said. Ethan Brooks wasn't just consulting at TechFlow. He was embezzling from them. What? Got a friend at the state police. They've been investigating him for weeks. Apparently, he's been running the same scam in 3 different towns. Comes in as a consultant, sets up fake vendor accounts, skims money from the company while he's sleeping with someone in management who can cover for him. And Kara? They don't think she knew about the money. She was just the cover story. But her career at TechFlow is over. They fired her this morning. I sat back in my chair, trying to process this information. So he was using her. Looks like it. And now she's got nothing, no job, no husband, no boyfriend, and a reputation that's shot to hell. I should have felt sorry for her. Part of me did. But a bigger part of me felt like justice had been served. The next day, I was at the Blue Boy having lunch when Rita Clary walked in. She looked like she'd aged 10 years in a week, her usual perfect appearance replaced by the haggard look of someone who hadn't been sleeping. She walked straight to my table and sat down without being invited. I need to talk to you, she said. I'm listening. I'm sorry, for all of it. For covering for her. For lying to you. For helping her destroy your marriage. Why did you do it? Because she's my friend. Was my friend. I thought she was unhappy, and maybe if she got it out of her system, she'd come back to you and everything would be okay. But it wasn't just a fling, was it? No, she was planning to leave you. She was going to wait until after the holidays, then file for divorce and move in with Ethan. She said you'd never see it coming. I took a sip of my beer. She was wrong about that. Tom, there's something else you should know. The night of the festival, after everything happened, she called me. She was hysterical, crying, saying it was all your fault, that you'd ruined her life. And what did you tell her? I told her she ruined her own life, and then I hung up on her. Rita stood up to leave, then turned back. For what it's worth, I think you handled it exactly right. She needed to learn that actions have consequences. After she left, I sat alone at my table, thinking about consequences and justice and the price of betrayal. Outside, Millbrook was going about its business, people working and living and making the kinds of small decisions that add up to a life. My phone buzzed. A text message from an unknown number. This isn't over. I stared at the message for a moment, then deleted it. It was over, whether Ethan Brooks wanted to admit it or not. He was gone, Kara was gone, and I was still here, still standing, still running my business and living my life. I finished my beer and walked outside into the crisp October air. Across the street, the banner for the Fall Festival was still hanging between 2 lampposts, a reminder of the day I stopped being a victim and started being the author of my own story. My phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jerry. You coming back to the plant today? On my way, I replied. I climbed into my beat-up Ford pickup, the truck that Ethan Brooks had looked down on, the truck that had outlasted his fancy Tesla and his fancy promises and his fancy lies. It started on the first try, like it always did, and I drove back to Avery Steel Fabrication, where honest work was waiting for me. The sign over the door still read, Avery Steel Fabrication, Tom Avery, owner. It would continue to read that for as long as I wanted it to. No one was going to take that away from me. No one was going to make me feel small or worthless or disposable ever again. I parked the truck and walked into my plant, where the smell of metal and machine oil greeted me like an old friend. Jerry was at his station, welding brackets for a job that would keep us busy for the next month. He looked up when I walked in and grinned. Boss, he said, ready to get back to work? More than ready, I said. I put on my work clothes, picked up my tools, and got back to the business of building things that would last. Outside, the world kept turning, people kept making mistakes and paying for them, and life kept moving forward. But in here, in my plant, surrounded by the tools of my trade and the satisfaction of honest work, I was exactly where I belonged. I was Tom Avery, owner of Avery Steel Fabrication, survivor of betrayal, architect of justice. And for the first time in months, that was enough.